G'day viewers, today we're here with John August. He's a candidate for the Fusion Party, an active member of the Pirate Party as well.
Yes, that's right.
Good looks to chat about the head. Today's Australia Day, by the way, so for foreigners, this is a very controversial day in Australia. It's just a bit, maybe. We're going to chat about immigration, one of the topics of the rallies, maybe some different plans for foreign policy, including maybe a payday along the way. So we'll see what's ahead. G'day listeners, welcome to My First Party, the podcast where we meet people at the grassroots changing politics, especially in Australia. My name is Owen Miller. I'm a candidate, I keep making this mistake, for the Fusion Party. I'm also the founder of the Non-Human Party. With us as usual, Brunswick's favourite bullshit detector, Peter Kargiotis.
Hello.
We're in person again, meeting Australians. John, it's good to have you.
Thank you, Owen. Thank you, Peter.
I saw, by the way, on your car, you had the sticker of the Australian Psychedelic Society.
Yes, that's right.
I was planning, actually, Peter's joining me. We're going to go take some mushrooms and go scuba diving.
Okay, goodness me, okay. I'm not against people taking psychedelic substances, but I'm not sure how safe that is. So do that on your own.
No, we were propositions to do it. So yesterday, was it yesterday?
Yeah, it would have been 2 days ago.
2 days ago, yeah. We're at a dance little gig, and yeah, someone suggested that would be a fun idea.
But yeah, you're going to drown, aren't you?
Well,
But
potential increase.
But what's I don't know. Have you ever seen it go wrong? I mean, many people, they're scared. Like, what happens when we legalize all these drugs? But yeah, I don't think it's that dangerous, is it?
Well, I suppose on the one hand, if you're going to take drugs, I mean, take responsibility for your own actions. But the thing I have to say is, take good quality drugs from people in conditions that are safe and comfortable. And let's just say, look, if you go to some sort of rave for the first time, you don't know anybody, and you get drugs from somebody you've never met before, don't do that. I have to say, look, if there's someone for a long time, if there's people doing free testing, that's a somewhat different environment. But, I can only say any scene, the first time you're there, the first 2 or 3 times, just watch and observe and take it all in. Don't just wade in, that would be my first piece of advice there.
It's like Nancy Reagan's, but better. It's like, if you don't know, say no.
Yeah, an interesting idea.
Well, you're going to say no to a lot of things then, but I can say,
Well, no, so talking specifically to her referencing drugs and yours on drugs. It's say no if you don't know. But if you do, then indulge and optimize.
Yeah, that's right. And I would say that, broadly speaking, a lot of dealers, they do want their clients to survive. But
Absolutely. It should be the business model.
Yeah, but equally, if they've met you for the first time,
Like
you met them
McDonald's.
for the first time, there's not that level of trust, and you've got to be cautious.
I guess so, in terms of being a business model, keep your customers alive. Do you guys remember there was a scandal with McKinsey? So they were advising a pharma company, how to get more drug sales. The pharma company did end up taking McKinsey's advice and saying to its sales reps, we'll give all these physicians a bonus if, in their patch, we have more opioid overdoses, because, that's a good proxy for like how much opioids are they pushing in their patch.
That sounds really, really dodgy, I must say. I mean, look, psychedelics is one thing, opioids is quite another. But, my understanding of that whole situation in the US is, look, dare I say it, look, if you are terminally ill and you are seeing some senior nurse or a doctor twice a week that's dealing with your particular issue and, how many drugs you're taking and that sort of thing, that's a very different environment to seeing a GP once every 3 months and they give you a script for, a bucket load of opioids. They're so different, those two situations. But what they did was they did all this experience that they had with like very close supervision on opioids.
Oh, sorry, who did this?
Well, in the US, my understanding is you had one experience of like people taking opioids being closely supervised, seeing the doctor or the senior nurse at least once a week or twice a week or whatever, and they're talking through their situation and what's going on. And that's poles apart from seeing a GP once every 3 months and getting a script. I understand the difference in those two situations. And it was seeing the GP once every few months and they give you a script for opioids. And that's when it spun out of control and went horribly wrong.
Yes. Sure. And the fact that Big Pharma wanted to profiteer from it as well.
And that is the thing. And let me be a little bit strangely macabre. It doesn't matter if your customers are dropping off the perch, as long as your rate of profit is growing more than what will happen if you put it in the bank account.
Well, by
What's the
definition,
interest
profit, unless it continues to grow, isn't a profit.
Yeah.
Well, in a viable sense.
Well, eventually, enough customers will drop off the perch
Correct.
that your profits will drop.
Yes.
But that may well be 20 or 30 years in the future. And if in the meantime, your profits are growing, your assets are growing more rapidly than if you plonk the money into a term deposit in the bank. In business terms,
Sure.
you're doing all right.
But we digressed from what we were speaking about. That was
Well,
psychedelics.
gone on quite a tangent there. Well, we started off talking about psychedelics, and then we were talking about opioids and that sort of
Isn't it? I brought it up as well. Isn't it a shame, John? That I guess the branding, legalize cannabis. Everybody, they think like, let's liberate drugs. Like, well, who am I going to vote for? Legalize cannabis. Many people, when I'm introducing the Fusion Party, they seem to be unaware that, we would also, legalize cannabis, mushrooms, MDMA.
So why isn't that like part of?
Well, we have many policies, and I guess,
But the fact that you're quite aware that people are saying to you, we're unaware of this, why aren't you making more aware of it?
yeah, I get. How high do you, on your posters, by the way, John? Do you have? Did you have like dot points in that on your election material?
I did have a comprehensive flyer that had like 25 points on it. One of them was decriminalise drugs, along with 20, 30 other points. So one of my leaflets did in fact have that. But, I recognise it wasn't one of the three main planks that I was talking about in my policy position.
What are the three main points?
Well, I was talking about fair foreign policy. I was talking about the abuse of intellectual property. Goodness me, what was the third one? Surveillance, digital surveillance by government or corporations. And let's just say, look, the pirates or the fusion, we've got a whole range of interests and they don't really clash, but obviously the ones that we talk about most strongly will be the ones closest to our heart. Now let's say, look, if you've got 3 minutes to say something to a camera and they're pointing stuff at you, you can't talk for pages and pages about every damn thing. You've got to make choices.
No, but you'd also obviously, depending on where you're running for election, right? So, for instance, you're not going to be talking about nuclear policy in Brunswick.
Turns out it doesn't go down very well.
just putting it out there.
Well,
Where I'd say probably speaking about perhaps legalizing cannabis may resonate more in Brunswick rather than trying to put a nuclear power plant here.
Well, I think one thing is that, like, when you have a single issue party, it's obviously going to be stronger on that. And the reality is, look, we're not a single issue party.
No, and as Howard's been informing me, some of the progressives who perhaps have a single issue don't like being called out for having a single issue.
When we were talking previously about our single issue parties, I was called a weak man, and this person.
Well, I would always say that, look, everyone has the prerogative to vote as they wish, to support what they wish and focus on the policies they choose to. And, a single issue party has a certain amount of power, undeniably. I mean, legalise cannabis.
You look at Pauline Hanson, she has one issue, this nation.
Yeah.
No policies, just, the nation.
Yeah, pretty much. It's actually, viewers, today we're filming on Australia Day, 26th of January. For foreign listeners, the background for Australia Day is it's when the first fleet landed in Sydney with all the convicts.
I thought it's when they sailed up to Gallipoli.
Oh, it could be either, yeah.
Jesus.
Which one is it? I'm not sure. Can you
I thought it was the I thought it was when the first fleet settled.
Sometimes they muster up all these different.
Certainly
it's
interesting.
confusing.
It is confusing.
During the
what are your legs?
During the First World War, we had a fleet that left from Western Australia for Gallipoli or the Dardanelles, and the Imperial Japanese Navy helped escort that fleet to the Dardanelles.
Thank God, the Japanese Navy. World War II, what they did for us.
No, World War One.
Jesus. Well, these conflicts are just merging into one saber-rattling bloodbath.
But yeah, it's I bring it up because so today various protests going on. I think there's one. I think they're calling it the March for Australia, and then the other one, I guess, the March against Australia. I'm not sure what they're calling
Okay,
it.
I admit I haven't been keeping up on these things, but by all means, I'll hold
Well, but don't you find it's problematic? I think both sides. Like I think sure, Australia, most nations around the world, they don't have a glittering history that they can be super proud of. But I think aren't we pretty happy with how Australia's ended up? Obviously there's room to improve. That's why we're.
Oh well, I would certainly say that, but perhaps a better celebration would have been when we became a federation.
Oh yeah, definitely,
all the states joined together, but we haven't actually had it yet. But if we had a treaty, that would be a day of remembrance and celebration, because in New Zealand they've got Waitangi Day.
Oh.
And for them, that was the time that their nation was founded because of the treaty.
True. But to Owen's point, as of 2 weeks, I feel a lot safer now. Thanks to our federal government's cooperation with the LNP, and now that with the no hate legislation, I do feel safer. So we are in a much better state.
I'm getting a lot less hate now since the bill passed.
Yeah, I feel a lot less hate in our community as well. And I know for our Indigenous population here, they've been expressing how much less hate they feel these days. Well,
probably
in the last few days as well. So it has been a much better time.
We'll see if this trend continues.
Well, we'll see. I do wonder about that, I must say. So,
And it'll be great that when the God-enshrined state of Israel's president comes.
Oh yeah, in February, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be great. So he can come and tell us what they're not doing to the Palestinians, because we don't hate the state of Israel at all.
I heard they're going to build a resort there.
Yes.
How can anyone hate the idea?
I love the
beach
idea.
resort.
Sometimes I think you should sort of clear and start from scratch. Like that.
If the decor just isn't right before.
That rubble, there's rubble there. Just get rid of it. And I think, that Herzog, when you're signing some artillery. Some artillery. I think that was beautiful.
Oh, sure. Was it the artillery or was it the non-lethal part?
Yeah, he was signing the non-lethal exterior
I don't think
paint.
you've got non-lethal artillery.
No, he was signing the non-lethal exterior
it's
part.
Just the case.
The casing. Mm-hmm. So that's just paint. That can't do anything. So, we love those things. So it's not hate.
Yeah.
And definitely it's semantics that we're doing here.
It needs to be done.
The semantics has to be right.
No, it is tricky. We've got to get
the definitions are a real struggle.
What if the semantics are right?
If I think actually more than we need a fact checker, we need someone to quote Bible verses at us.
Because that's right.
Well,
you can get away with that.
Exactly.
Any Bible
Anything
verse.
from the Quran is a good one.
The Bible,
the New Testament, Old Testament, they're good ones. Yeah. I read the Analects by Confucius. It's not as quotable, although wise men say that's not how it's written.
No, what about limericks? What about limericks?
Oh, are there holy limericks? There must
be.
I'm
just Confucius said we could do that.
Yes. Yeah, if only. Or alternatively, what if we start a religion?
Well, I've thought about that. I've heard a lot of "I God, on God, I God."
Well, just putting it out there, I do wonder if we can make Australia a better place merely by writing lines of legislation. That's always going to be a
policy. Start with policy first, and a policy that's read by our politicians who we elect. But anyway, we digress again.
Sorry, we were talking about the marches happening today. So the pro Australia Day one, to John's point, it's not the best day to celebrate.
Yes.
Anyway, if anything, it's Sydney Day or New South Wales Day, founding that colony, that city. Many people, including myself, would like to distinguish Australia, the modern nation, from this colony that, happens to be in the same place. And I guess you could argue like we did inherit the wealth of New South Wales. But anyway, like it is a different
Once upon a time, New South Wales and Victoria were the one thing. So there you go.
But then, so for instance, the people organising the March for Australia, so it seems to be linked to the National Socialist Network. And, their main thing today, I think,
is... You're talking about the Nazis? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Nazis, yeah. And so, that one of their main things is anti-immigration. But then they also have, I was wrong in a previous episode. I said, like, do they actually talk about the Jews anymore? Turns out they do. I watched, one of their people is in jail at the moment for a Facebook reel or something. And so I watched just a minute of that. Like, wow, you can squeeze a lot in that minute.
Hope you need subscribe, link, like and subscribe, because under the current, you don't hate it, so be careful.
But yeah, so that, they're talking about how, Jews secretly run the world. And
It's not a secret if he knows it.
Well, I have to say, one of the weird things is that, if anything, the Chinese finances and the linkage to the US is a really intense thing at the moment. And it doesn't seem like the neo-Nazis ever predicted the rise of China in the financial world. But, oh, well, there you go.
Oh, I
I mean, people even call it Chimerica, the way that they've been linked. And obviously Trump is annoyed with the linkages to China, and now he's
We'd be careful. Could we be breach of anti-sign act?
Oh, yes, the Chinese, what's the word?
We'd be careful now. Under the new hate legislation.
It's we definitely need a new religion too. But anyway, so I bring this up. So yeah, so I noticed lots of homophobia coming out of these people as well. They like portraying essentially gay people are some sort of sexual perverts, and that they don't belong. And I don't think of myself as a demon sexual pervert.
That's all right.
Anyway, that's some of the viewers have commented, by the way, just to clear the record. I am gay.
What?
And Peter is not. And anyway, just
no, I always thought that was the case since I saw your purple hair.
Anyway, but then that's annoying. It's even at the clubs. The gay guys hit on you. They're less interested in me. But
it was interesting.
But it's it's curious. And so in these people's push, if we focus on homophobia, for instance, I had and like they showed a graph. So in Australia, so gay marriage was legalized in about 2014. Wait, a bit later, maybe 2017 at the latest. Anyway, so then they've been regularly asking this question: do you support gay marriage? And it happened to peak the year that this plebiscite happened and legalized it. Okay. But since then, it's dropped substantially.
As in the population?
Like the support for gay marriage has dropped in Australia, noticeably.
Can I also ask, would you know, what's the correlation of just support for marriage in society too? Maybe there's been a correlating drop as well.
Could be, yeah.
Because it's interesting to make that observation, but the more interesting thing is to understand why it's declined, why that support has declined.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm trying to draw to, because it could be like most issues. There could be just issue, if people just don't want to get married, it could be financial, it could be lots of things there.
But then, my biggest issue with this homophobic stuff at the moment is when they frame it as something unnatural, I think like that is just so provably wrong. I mean, my go-to example is like, there are gay penguins, gay sheep.
There are fish that change sex, but anyway, I don't know if that's about the same.
I wouldn't really include that, but it's for it to be so common.
Yeah, but we had this conversation the other day, right? So it's the same, I guess, desire that someone who says, being gay is wrong, because by default they're saying, okay, let's say that's a man saying that I desire females' genitals. He has that strong sexual desire, that individual. So that's his innate sexual desire. So the fact that he says that's natural for him, why wouldn't your desire be natural for you?
Well, I guess I would say, some people, I guess.
I know the argument they'll put forward is to say it's social conditioning, it's not right. But then he's actually then denying what his is. Is he saying that his desire was also social conditioning? So what he has, like I do, I have a certain sexual desire, right? For what I like, you do. So he can't say that his own sexual desires were social conditioning and say his aren't, but yours are.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So yours is some perversion.
Yeah.
And you're denying your own sexual desires.
Well, if I can stick my oar in, what you're also falling into is what's called the naturalistic fallacy. Because you can say that tornadoes are tornadoes are natural, but they kill people. Diseases are natural. So you could say these people who want to cure people of diseases, it's natural to catch a disease. How dare you intervene like that?
So we don't need emotive speak, but just explain what you're actually saying.
Well, there's what's called the naturalistic fallacy, where you say what's natural is good.
No. So you're putting it now. So I toned down the emotion because I didn't speak like that. I was just expressing my view.
Oh, I'm being dramatic.
I know,
It
that's what I'm saying.
happens
Tone down the drama.
Yeah, it happens
And
from
then,
time to time.
and then I didn't say what's good or bad because I didn't express what he said, whether it's good or bad, right? Or whether what I do is good or bad. So just explain to me in plain terms so we understand what do you mean by what you're trying to say.
Okay, well, what someone might say is what's natural is good. Okay, now there's a...
I'm just saying what's
okay.
natural is
Okay,
innate.
now there's
Oh, but people do say this,
some stages here.
Right.
You could say that something is or isn't natural, and that's one element of the debate.
Sure.
But assuming you can define things that are natural, there's this jump where you go, what's natural is good, but diseases are natural and they're bad. Tornadoes are natural and they're bad. So it's sort of saying that people presume this linkage and say what's natural is good. But you could say, I mean, look, I'm going out on a limb here, but you could say that gays are good because they don't reproduce, so they are the custodians of cultural memory in society, and as it were, they're the library before we had libraries. So they contribute to the welfare of society. I mean, I'm just going out on my limb there, but saying that, there could be a reason for gays built into, the history of evolution.
No.
Well, yeah.
No, I think that we're just drawing a long bow for something to make an argument that doesn't exist. Like,
No, the argument does exist. These people, their biggest...
I get what you're saying, and even trying to back that up even. But all you're doing then is giving people who, like these Nazis, as you were saying, who might have these arguments, they're creating these terms of references, right? That one, I feel like I don't even need to give them an argument as to why they're wrong. So I just said whatever is naturally innate to you is to you. And I just put an argument to say, well, what is innately natural to this individual if he's indeed, able to profess what it is, because maybe he even has some sexual tendencies. All I'm saying is, if we're giving them other arguments, even long bow ones, we're actually falling into the sort of self-fulfilling prophecy of arguing the terms of reference that they want to set up, which are ridiculous to begin with.
Oh, no, but to John's point, like the sort of clutching at nature, what's natural as an argument, like that is pretty common. And I'm saying that it is a strong homophobic argument, the notion that being gay is unnatural, therefore it's bad. And so I guess, like to John's point, maybe we could just say it's irrelevant whether or not it's natural.
Well, the other thing that I didn't pursue is the prerogative of being an individual and individual rights and your own right, prerogative, whatever you want to describe it, to be the person that you want to be.
100%.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the argument from personal autonomy and personal freedom. And, one of the things about Nazis, I guess I'm sort of, trying to thread a few things together. But I think because people go, yuck, Nazis, what they're trying to do is saying, oh, no, it's not us, yuck, but look at that yuck over there. And it's sort of the deflecting sort of argument as well.
That's what I'm saying. They're trying to create different terms of reference, and we're adding oxygen to that, but then trying to give other arguments to justify the argument against what they're putting forward. And I'm like, no. Again, they're deflective issues like the culture war issues because of what they don't want to actually be discussing, right? And that is that, governments feed into corporations who feed into totalitarian control of rules on society, and these little things sprout, right, as conditions call for it. And us feeding into that, it's just,
I would have to say, on the one hand, what you say is correct, but we could have this podcast and not mention these issues at all and just not talk about them at all.
No, we are. This is part of the discussion.
But I think the extension of your argument is that we should never have brought up this topic in the first place.
No, I never said that. I'm putting my argument as to why I think their arguments are wrong.
Oh, well, I think it's more productive for us to disprove them now as opposed to go out on the street and, I guess...
Like the Greens.
Well,
like our Greens friends, right? And you can see that they don't want to talk to anyone unless... you fulfill their view of the world.
And so I was going to say that I think both of these protests are conflating too many issues. Well, and so the ones, I called it before the March Against Australia, I don't know what they're actually calling themselves, But their big thing seems to be like, we hate the March for Australia. So like,
Well,
you see them, they'll wave like Palestinian flags, Aboriginal flags. And then, they'll, what's the other cause? They're pro-immigration. And so they're conflating so many issues together. And then, so all that emerges out of it afterwards is, we hate this other protest.
Making some sort of brand sweeping generalization as you do from time to time, I think there's healthy nationalism and there's unhealthy nationalism. And I think that neither of these marches sort of capture what I would call healthy nationalism about Australia, where you say, look, Australia's a nice place. We're not the best nation on planet Earth, but it's where we happen to live. And perhaps we should be proud of the things that we've achieved without dissing any particular culture, any other nation, but just saying, look, we're here and let's relate to it as best as we can. And that's cutting the Gordian knot and disagreeing with both those protests, saying there's something called healthy Australian nationalism, and neither of you are really grasping what that is.
But John, would you agree with the point I was trying to make that both of these protests are conflating way too many issues together?
Yes, I would certainly agree with that, because notice, I suppose I'm sort of saying, what is healthy Australian nationalism? And it's a lot more complicated than either of these groups are talking about.
Well, I kind of agree, but also disagree, because I think you're probably also missing the point of, if people are going to these protests and, as you say, are waving a Palestinian flag and, say, an Aboriginal flag, because they're not saying we're both necessarily in favour of, these other nations. It's about Indigenous people and their right to getting sort of mistreated as First Nations people.
I see that. But
so I don't think they're different, conflating different issues. It is one major issue that they're all sort of marching for.
But if you have in the same protest, pro-Aboriginal rights, pro-Palestine, pro-immigration, what's the thing that ties them together?
So what forces people to leave their homeland?
Or someone kicking them out. That's a common one.
Yeah, generally what?
Yeah. No, I'll throw it out there. There's a moderate number of people who are leaving the US and coming to Australia because of Trump. Yeah.
Again,
we're doing that of their own accord. They're not being kicked out.
We're not talking about.
We're not making that choice.
We're not talking. Come on, don't insult my intelligence with what question I'm asking. What forces refugees to leave countries around the world?
Well, yeah, they've been killed.
I don't give a shit about Americans who don't like Trump. You get the government.
They created him.
You get the government you deserve, and they need to deal with that shit.
Well, a lot of those people wouldn't have voted for Trump. Of course, the ones who
they didn't even vote. It's like, it's like I had someone at my house not long ago say to me, there are a lot of people in Israel that don't agree with that. No, Netanyahu, and not in the government. I said, he's been the longest serving prime minister over there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, wow. You don't absolve yourself by saying, I don't like getting on a boat now and going to Greece or the Mediterranean because restaurants turn me down as an Israeli holding passport. Hold up. No. You're responsible for your government.
Well, I have to say that the more complicated sentiment I would say is, if someone runs that line, but they can cite the history of active activism challenging the Israeli government, challenging Netanyahu, rather than just saying, I never really liked him. The bar is a lot higher than that.
Oh yeah,
you really have
that's
to
that'll be the exception to the rule.
But if you do have a very strong, healthy record of anti-Netanyahu activism, then I'll give you a tick.
100%. I'll support him.
Yeah, it's but what was I going to say? The America. Remember when Trump got elected the first time? Many people were saying like, I'm going to move to Canada. By the way, New Zealanders, they hate it when Americans talk about like, something gets screwed up in America, I'm going to move to New Zealand. They don't like being this sort of, plan B option around the world. They love New Zealand.
A lot of wealthy people have built, sort of nuclear retreats or some damn thing, survivalist compounds in New Zealand. Of course, when the shit hits the fan internationally, you still got to get to New Zealand.
Well, that's true, yeah. Well, actually, speaking of that point, John, you were talking before about, when we had the big solar flares, I guess many people would be unaware of how much of a big issue this is. Because, what was it in the 1890s, was it?
1850s, 1890s Carrington event, yes.
Yeah, like it knocked out all the telegram systems.
That's
Yeah.
correct. Well, people were getting electric shocks from the telegrams, and they were actually able to run the telegram systems without the batteries, so they could turn off the batteries and get them running. Goodness me, well, I don't know, 100, 150 years ago, I'd have to look up the exact date. But I do believe there is some reasonably good analysis that, once every 500 years we'll have a Carrington event. And I know a guy who is a quite qualified physicist in this area. His sweeping maxim is, we are one Carrington event away from Mad Max, right? And so, let's say, we've actually had our whole COVID crisis. I know it hit you guys in Victoria a lot worse than us guys in New South Wales. But the amazing thing is, you turn back the clock about 20 or 30 years ago. I remember a book called The Coming Plague, Newly Emerging Diseases in a World Out of Balance. And back then, COVID, SARS, MERS, etc., wasn't even thought of. The big thing, if you remember that far back, was Ebola. Ebola was the big thing. But even back then, epidemiologists were saying, one day we're going to have a pandemic and it's going to spread around the globe through the international airline system. And they predicted that 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And in a sense, probably I'm sure some academics were writing papers and saying, oh, look what effect the next pandemic will have on us. And nobody bloody reacted. And in a sense, if the world would have been primed for that, the whole COVID experience could have been very different. It wasn't, because, basically we just lurched into this, we sleptwalked into this global crisis. But the epidemiologists were predicting it 30 years ago.
Yeah, but it was very different for some of us, though.
Yeah,
Especially Victoria.
But what I guess, some people's, I know I haven't looked into it. I mean, but there's stories, I think there's a book called 45 Hours or 48 Hours, where they see this solar flare coming. And over the next 1 or 2 days, they have to shut down every power station, every grid across the world in the hope that it won't damage the grid, and then they'll be able to start it up again after the solar storm has passed. And that's a hell of a thing. Every hospital, every light, every heater, unless you've got Primus lanterns or whatever, has to be shut down to actually survive that. But and if you don't do a proper good job of it, you're in Mad Max territory.
Oh, because the circuits burn out.
Yeah, that's right. So, and it's going to, I don't know, and maybe, I don't know, I do believe that real old style cars will survive a Carrington event, but, your decent cars might well be fried, the electronics, the ones that run on the electronics. And
bicycles will be fine.
Yeah, bicycles will be fine. I don't know what's going to happen to all our laptops. Again, I do not know enough about this, but, the predictions are Carrington events happen once every 500 years, and I think it's 150 years since the last one. So, yeah.
Probably you're talking about the next 5 years.
Oh, well, we've got threats. We've got threats from pandemics. We've got threats from global warming. We've got threats from...
So you're not talking about anywhere near in the next 50 years, really?
No, it's possible.
Mate, I mean, just because it happens every 500 years, you could have a situation in statistics where something happens once, and then 10 years after you get the same thing. I mean, it's every 500 years on average, mate, on average.
I'm thinking I've got maybe 20 years of hard living left, and after that, I'm living heroin.
We'll see.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. If you want to look at your own life trajectory, I suppose that's a different thing. But mate, could happen in 5 years' time, and boom, we're back in the Middle Ages. I tell you,
We're doing it earlier.
Hey, John, we like to play a game with all the guests, guessing a quote.
Yeah.
So I wonder, viewers try to guess as well who said this. So it goes, weak people, revenge. Strong people, forgive. Intelligent people, ignore. And then, so, besides who said it, do we agree with this?
Oh, well, yeah, that goes that's sort of similar to that thing about, petty people talk about other people.
Yes.
Wise talk about events,
ideas, yeah. Interesting, yeah. But then, I don't know. This thing about only, strong people forgiving. I guess sounds very like Jesus. This wasn't Jesus, the quote, by the way. But I don't know. At some point, if someone's taking all from you, you have to fight back.
I believe that. But the thing is, revenge is a thing of. It's sort of more, I guess, petty or emotional or whatever. If you are protecting your interests strategically, I don't call that revenge. right?
Oh, so revenge is only like petty bullshit. You're saying.
Yeah, revenge is petty bullshit, but if
it's-
you are protecting your interests strategically, I wouldn't call that revenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Even
I-
if it is.
let's say, well, the way I describe that quote is I think it sets up a false trichotomy when the world is actually more complicated.
Well, you saw how like Israel hit Iran preemptively. So they didn't wait to get hit and then hit them as a revenge. They strategically hit them first.
Well, I
So I
think
guess it's the
according,
opposite.
I mean, look, we probably need a lawyer to do with international law and so on.
But that's one of your policies.
But my understanding is that, you know, you can't preemptively attack somebody. You need to react.
That's
to
anti-Semitic.
well.
But anyway, so obviously, in
Oh,
this,
well, I believe we can go back to, basically, Geneva Conventions, law of war, just war theory.
Don't say the G word. Don't say the other G words.
That one of the Christian theologians came up with, just war theory. I forget which one it was, Was it
this was to justify the Crusades, I'm guessing.
well, I
Because of
don't.
the croissants.
Oh yeah, was it? Hang on, viewers, have you heard this? By the way, I had an argument. So at the bakery downstairs, they make great food, by the way, but their croissants are not crescent shaped. And I heard the croissants were made to be the crescent shape because it was celebrating the victory over Muslims when they tried to invade Europe. Well, I guess they did invade.
News to me. I'm not saying
Because
it's
in Paris,
impossible.
they was making croissants.
I did croissants come from Paris?
No, the other part of where they come from.
They came from somewhere in Europe.
In France. Well, I'm
Did they?
assuming it's not. Well, didn't the French make it?
Well, I mean, croissant means crescent, so it wasn't. Just because the French call them a crescent, like if it's a very literal translation, it could have come from.
Right. Could
anywhere.
have been what from Malta or somewhere.
Well,
where the
yeah.
Crusades were sort of stopping over.
Well, did it get stopped in Serbia? No, because Serbia is Muslim.
Actually, in Hungary.
Oh, it sounds about right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was around Transylvania and stuff. Is it what?
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's when we did that
no.
fact checker.
Well, I already know about the Crusades. Well, don't I? I knew about the croissants.
Didn't know what happened in Byzantine.
What do you mean? Like,
That's where we stopped, and you were going to do some checking yourself.
anyway, the viewers take my word for it. Anyway,
Were they sacked Constantinople?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you were. Anyway, back to the quote. So, John, you can tell it's someone who obviously thinks they're intelligent. If this is apparently and obviously someone who doesn't participate in fights and who thinks they're intelligent. Yeah.
So like a Gandhi or something.
Oh,
I think
he
that-
definitely
well,
participates in fights. Yeah.
I wonder if the concept.
Yeah.
I wonder if the concept of armed neutrality means anything to him, or the porcupine theory, or the echidna theory of Australian defence. So
Also, another big hint. So, this person was not a politician, but they could have been a world leader. They had the opportunity. Anyway,
Epstein.
there was Einstein.
Einstein.
Well, so
Let us off.
why I brought it up. So I saw the other day. So what was it when Israel was being formed? Einstein. Someone was people were seriously suggesting Einstein should be the first
president
of Israel. Yeah, but he declined. And yeah, it's curious. I hear all these stories about people are asking Einstein to name their baby, and just he was the go-to sort of smart guy. And so it was good that back then people wanted a smart guy as their leader.
Well, I know there are some nations where you've got the prime minister and you've got the president, and traditionally the prime minister is political, but the president is some figure for arts or science or whatever. Like our own governor general tends to be a figure from outside of politics. So certainly that there is a bit of a tradition of someone from outside of politics doing these roles. So.
But yeah, don't you think it's interesting? So, like many Australian prime ministers, for instance, Bob Hawke, Tony Abbott, many Liberal Party people have been Rhodes Scholars. And then, yeah, it was curious. I remember chatting with a colleague at the time, like, how come Tony Abbott doesn't make that more well known that he's a Rhodes Scholar? And this colleague was
Because he speaks.
who speaks.
Tony Abbott.
Well, they want to broaden their appeal to the general public,
Well, yeah, because so the colleague was saying, like, oh, what do you expect him to say? Like, you should vote, you should vote for me because I'm a lot smarter than you. But wouldn't it be nice if people did want a smart leader?
Well, that was actually my point. That what comes out of his mouth should be what people identify as an intelligent person, not what
Yeah,
credentials
yeah,
he has
I
on
see.
his wall.
You're right. If he says I'm a Rhodes Scholar,
No, if he says
it shouldn't.
what he says comes out of his mouth is a fucking idiot, right?
Yeah,
Then it'll be like, doesn't
yeah.
matter what he's got up on his wall.
It should ideally not change their perception too much. They should already be able to tell that
Yeah.
he is this
Yeah,
Rhodes Scholar.
basically, I guess if someone speaks well and people say that person is smart, they're a good person to have as a leader, and then you do some sort of profile piece and you say, well, why is this person so smart? And you could say, well, they are a Rhodes Scholar, so it does fit together nicely. That's, shall we say, the background piece, but the foreground piece is, well, they speak well and they seem to know what they're doing.
Well, conversely, then back to your point. So therefore, are you suggesting that someone like Tony Abbott, being a Rhodes Scholar, as you're saying, therefore is smart, intelligent, and therefore was a great leader?
Oh, he had a good setup to be a good leader.
Well, yeah, they all have a pathway to become in that space,
Yeah.
right? So putting that aside, what is your point? Because I think you've just argued the argument that it's irrelevant if they're Rhodes Scholars because they still come out to be morons as leaders.
Well, another big thing influencing Tony Abbott was that he was very Christian, compared to.
So again, you're making my point. What then for does being a Rhodes Scholar have if he's
No, but
influenced
it is
by?
a good thing.
But if why? But again, the outcome, it's not a self-fulfilling.
No, but what if he was just as Christian but not a Rhodes Scholar? That would be Scott Morrison.
What was the difference?
No, I'm saying like.
At least Scott Morrison had 5 portfolios.
Gentle, now let me go off in a different direction. I know you had one quote which was built in threes. There's another cute quote that I really quite like. Religion is believed by the masses to be true, by the wise to be false, and by the rulers to be
Necessary.
useful.
Yeah.
Yes. I think I was Seneca out of Rome.
Oh, I was going to guess a Roman person.
Yeah. Certainly a gentleman out of Rome anyway. I believe it was Seneca. So.
Well, yeah, it seems interesting that so actually it reminds me one of the things in the immigration debate in the UK at the moment, there's this debate about cousins getting married. I think the idea is that they might lift the ban soon. And so you see, for instance, in Christian societies, it's very frowned upon to get married to your cousin. It didn't always used to be this way though. So even back in the Count of Monte Cristo, so
You can go further back. Look at the Bible.
well, I'm choosing this because it's
Well,
recent.
in ancient Egypt, the royal family, brothers and sisters.
Oh, that's very particular though. That's just the royal family. But anyway, yeah. So in the Count of Monte Cristo, it starts out the guy gets arrested because there's this, two men are interested in the same woman, and it happens to be that the guy who goes to prison is the cousin of this woman, the love interest. And in the book, it's stated like, that's just a coincidence, like fancy that. And so in modern movies and that, this fact is just completely left out because, you wouldn't be able to portray that to a modern Christian or atheist Western audience without it being like, what the fuck? But yeah, at the time,
It sounds like you're advocating for it to occur.
well, no. So one of the things I was reading about why it was introduced, the notion that this should be frowned upon, is so the Catholic Church apparently introduced it, and so if you have very strong family relations, then you don't, it's all cliques. You're all looking out for just your group. But if you break down that family connection, you increasingly have to rely on society as a whole to have a connection. And that, therefore, whoever runs society, like, the Pope, for instance, can therefore have more influence. But then also, I guess, I wonder when it was that they discovered that, inbreeding leads to,
mutation.
children turning
You've
out.
seen some of the portraits back
The Habsburgs, yeah.
Yeah. I think they discovered it.
That would have been, probably around the same time as the Count of Monte Cristo. So,
They've known it for a while.
but to John's
You look at
point,
people who've lived on islands and stuff, they know about inbreeding.
no, but to John's point of the pharaohs inbreeding, that would have been a similar reason to the Habsburgs. They want to control, they don't want to dilute their power. The pharaohs, they believed they were gods. So why would you want to, date mere mortals?
Yes, yes. That's
Yeah, so I guess that's not quite comparable.
Well, most royal families are treated in their belief in the hierarchy is similar to that. The Queen, the Crown,
King Charles.
well, yes, and Henry, they made himself their own church, right?
Yeah. useful idea, then you're able to
We can
save
say what we want.
Exactly. It's very
Thank you,
handy.
Albanese.
But yeah, no, thinking more because this relates to the protests going on at the moment as well, John. It's oh yeah, did I mention to you viewers? I'm going to be writing the immigration policy for Fusion, and this is going to be a can of worms because unfortunately, if you say that you have an immigration policy that's not open borders, someone's going to call you racist.
Are you?
No.
Or so what is your policy?
Well, I haven't finished writing it yet.
Any
Well, so I mean,
Sneak-
this, as we pose questions and think through our ideas, and we can get it fleshed out.
Okay.
So, for instance, John, with the whole thing about like cousin marriage, for instance, or even just immigration, what problems does it solve? What problems does it create? And so, I guess, why Anthony Albanese, why it's popular in Australia, for instance, to have very high immigration, comparatively in the OECD. There are labour shortages, and you see we have an ageing population. And so, if we're going to keep paying pensions to people when they retire, how do we pay for all this? We need a big working age population to pay income tax. We have amongst the highest income tax in the world. And then, so you see a similar problem playing out in the US, where, they have an aging population. How are they going to pay all the social security benefits to the older people? And so, there are a few different levers, though. There's not just, let's introduce a whole bunch of working age immigrants to earn income tax. Another option, for instance, is to raise the retirement age.
Yes.
Another option is to
change the tax system?
Yes. And so
Stop paying welfare to those who have.
Well, I think the easiest lever to pull in Australia is to increase the amount of tax that the mining companies have to pay.
Wow.
Like that should be the easiest lever to pull.
Yeah.
And so
Yes, I think there was the super profits tax that Rudd came up with, and there was a great to-do from the mining lobby, and that sort of got somewhat.
But when someone like Pauline and probably Barnaby, when we mentioned Barnaby today, get flown to conservative conferences, on Gina's plane, and don't even reveal it until the media sort of catches them. Then you wonder what else they don't reveal and who pays them for even wearing scarves in Parliament and so forth. Then you wonder, well, how are these laws going to get changed? Because now, I was going to interrupt there, because now I'm speaking to some individuals who have been on the right side of, let's say, politics in Australia, following even LNP and so forth. And I put to them to say, so what do you think of the new hate laws now? Because, this is going against your freedom of speech, the left woke that you're attacking, and then say, this is terrible, I hate this. I'm going to now, fly the Pauline Hanson flag, and I'm like, she's voted for that as well. She's voted for, anti.
oh, did she? The hate speech ones?
Well, she didn't, but even in the past, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's on board with Gina, like literally, like. So they just jump on these sound bites.
Well, remember that we had that libertarian guest, Rachel, and she was saying, Pauline's not so bad, but Pauline voted for the disinformation bill. The sort of one of the most important things for the Libertarian Party and for Putin, freedom of speech. But yeah, so we were saying, so the different levers we can pull to, I guess the big problem is the aging population is changing, the tax system.
Well,
and
certainly, if you bring immigrants in, you lower the average age of Australia, and that's one way in which you're kicking the can down the road. The thing is, we have actually had diminishing, per capita wealth. So we've actually had a per capita recession, even though the whole Australian economy has been growing. And, that is what you might call an economic struggle to deal with these economic issues. But certainly increasing your retirement age is one way around this. And I sometimes wonder, how can we have unemployment at the same time as we're worried about having enough people to do all the stuff we need to do? And so for me, I get a bit puzzled by some of these narratives at times, that they seem to be a bit contradictory.
So, but sort of, okay, that's sort of spoke about at the end of, increasing the retirement age, which I understand why you want people to work longer for these corporations that, don't pay tax in many instances. I look at it the other way, right? So when you do bring in migration, and I'll talk about even say when my parents came here, because I know about them. So they came here when they were like 20 years old, effectively. So a country like Australia or similar countries get free labor. And so you're receiving labor that's already been paid for.
Oh, you didn't have to pay
You
for the
didn't,
education.
you didn't raise them, you didn't feed them as for children, education, anything. You got fully effective, ready to work for the conditions that you needed. And back then they needed people to work effectively in factories and labor. Now, obviously, you're targeting a different resource with probably intellectual properties that, again, someone else has paid for that training.
Yeah, yeah.
So that has to be remembered that you're bringing in this free labor.
Oh, well, as well, they send remittances back to the home country.
Again, stop that narrative. Stop that narrative, right? Again, I'm talking about what you're bringing in here for free, because what you're, even if they're sending back a certain percentage, right? The amount that you're getting here, because do you accept that even if the money you earn here, even if you pocket all of it because you want to save, because you're paying your mortgage and everything else, do you accept that you've put money back into the economy just by living here?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so why wouldn't they as well?
No, but if they send back a big chunk of it to some foreign
No,
country.
but see, again, answer my question. Wouldn't they just even by living here? So I'm just trying to...
Yeah,
no,
they do.
Okay.
So they do. But I'm saying, like, by sending back some of it, it decreases the appeal.
Peter, I have something to say, but I better let you finish.
No, I'll finish, because I know Owen's, he has this white filter sometimes, and we have to talk about it in context, but you say your bit.
Okay. Well, first off, I am actually on record my previous political speeches. I mean, I have to sort of dredge my memory to figure out where I've said it. But I've actually spoken about foreign aid and foreign policy. And so there's a certain amount of money we spent on foreign aid. But if we import people from overseas who are skilled in, let's say, nursing or whatever, and that nation has spent a decent amount of money training them, and we then bring them in, we should really identify that cost and, at least in a virtual sense, subtract that cost from our foreign aid budget.
So now
we have the actual foreign aid budget, and then we have the effect.
So I knew you probably were going to say that without actually qualifying what foreign aid actually is. So you make out that foreign aid is just this benevolent Boxing Day gift we give them to say, here, do what you want with this money.
No. If you let me finish, I will also.
No. So now tell me, before you make that little throwaway comment, that we give them this foreign aid, because you know very well how foreign aid works, right? Because foreign aid can be tied into, we're giving you, you two are fighting here, we're going to give you this amount of money with your military, and that's counted as foreign aid. It can also be given that, our mining companies are coming there, we're going to build the roads, harbour for our mining company, that's counted as foreign aid as well. So unless we're going to break down who we're giving it to and what it's going to, normally it's going to the corporations that are going in there to extract that wealth.
Well, the point is...
No, my point is valid, because don't throw away these
I have actually said pretty much exactly what you're saying in my past speeches, if you would have let me finish.
Well, then you need to give the context before you make the
Hang
point.
on, but you interrupted me before I finished what I was going to say.
But you made a point.
Wait, sorry,
I want context.
John, what were you saying? Sorry, the money it costs to train the nurses.
I did actually say the money it costs to train the nurses as compared to foreign aid. And I also said in my past speeches is maybe foreign aid is just a subsidy to our construction and engineering firms to build infrastructure that these nations don't actually need.
Okay, so all that then is irrelevant to the actual individuals. So then talk about and say foreign aid is a furphy, right? That it just goes to corporations. So it's conflated to the discussion we're having here about immigrants is an irrelevant point. I'm saying we're still getting these people that are coming over to benefit this country and the economy. His point about, do they send money back? Again, immaterial in comparison to what it costs to raise a child. I've raised a child. You raised a child? No. So again, what it costs to raise a child to the point where they become a fully effective member of society, we're getting them for free. And again, we're not even talking about IP knowledge and everything else. If we want to then talk about what is foreign aid and how countries use it, nations use it to impact not just the people, sometimes subjugate them to debt, but also influence policies and politics overseas, that's a totally different discussion. But let's not conflate it with the discussion we're having here about getting cheap labor into this country, right? And what debt we then have to these people.
That was actually
They're all three different discussions.
going to be part two of what I was saying, because I do actually have, a multi-pronged commentary on this.
We need to do it in sequential order so it makes sense.
Well,
and that You don't conflate it.
I speak, it's a serial communication channel. We can't actually open our brains up and have this multi-channel optical fiber between our two brains. We don't have that level of technology, at least not yet anyway. But anyway, so the other thing that I will also observe when it comes to immigration is that there's some professions that are considered in shortage. And some of the bizarre collection that is, I think, hairdressers, chefs at RSL, goat breeders. Now, there's this weird collection of things that are supposedly in shortage. And one of the things about bringing in skilled immigrants because there's a supposed shortage, it never fixes the problem because it suppresses wages in that field and suppresses our inclination to train locals to do those jobs. So in a sense, you say, oh, there's a shortage of skilled people in professions X, Y, Z. Bringing in skilled people to sort that out has never fixed any problems. Now, let's just say, look, maybe we want some people coming into Australia because we're being a humane nation on the world stage. Maybe. But let's be clear that that's our justification for bringing people in. And I think refugees are something like 10 or 20% of our total intake. So people bang on about refugees, but you could actually double the number of refugees and halve the total number of people coming into Australia. And, one of the things is, yes, we have the reality that we have a per capita recession, even though the total size of the economy is growing. And that is its own struggle to deal with. We have an aging population, which is its own struggle to deal with. And, yes, there's the aging population, and we need to do a few things. One is potentially raise the retirement age.
No. I'm not going to fall into the honey trap of having this conversation, go down the path, and then say, well, the only solution is to raise the retirement age.
No, I would never say it's the only solution.
Well, no, I'm not having
there's a multi.
No, I'm not having it as I'm not having it as even a conversation piece when you haven't even mentioned once to change the tax system, right? That basically rewards and is creating.
I'm on record for changing the tax system. Look at my bloody videos.
You're interrupting me now. What I'm saying, until the only policy you put forward as in to change the tax system, get rid of capital gains, negative gearing, right, which is creating our cities, which basically means you have property wealth here and future wealth that you pass on to your inheritance, and everyone else who doesn't has to pay for the roads to come in and out here, right? Now, anything else is just creating these little discussion points that keep us all discussing and getting into the racist chants that, make one nation.
All right, I totally agree with you. Let's finish the interview now. Let's leave it at that, okay? Not a problem.
Sorry, John, many viewers will not have seen you before, so they haven't seen your previous videos. But Australia, we're in a lucky position where we can, charge companies more money to
in some instances, any.
But then actually, so one of the things I wanted to bring up, so we were saying today's Australia Day, or, the day Australia started actually being a colony. So I was reading about the colonial history of Bermuda, which I found really interesting. So it's, I'm pretty sure it's the furthest east in the Caribbean. It's one of the sides. Anyway, I was curious seeing that it was actually empty when the British turned up, complete, empty of humans. And so, so they...
What sort of humans ended up on that island?
Oh, well, British people originally,
Do tell, Owen.
So,
what other humans were brought onto that island?
So anyway, so...
Can you tell me?
Just a sec. So it was, they weren't even going there. They got shipwrecked there on their way to Virginia, I think it was.
With what sort of people to Virginia, Owen?
Well, anyway, so the British people going, and then, yes, to Peter's point, they bought slaves around the Caribbean, and, those people came to Bermuda. But then, at the end, the sort of descendants or whichever slaves happened to be there at the time were freed. And then, so I was listening to this guy. It was an interview with this American wanting to chat about colonization and race debates, and versus the Bermudan guy. He was an opposition party leader in Bermuda, and I couldn't believe it. So number one, the fact that there was no indigenous colony there. It was empty, and then when Britain got rid of slavery, and so these people were freed. And so, first of all,
you're not going to get a medal for this again. We've done this before. That Britain got rid of slavery.
They did. Anyway,
you're not getting a medal for it.
but I'm not British. I'm
Oh,
not
at least it's
about
not
that.
just me you take a swipe at anyway.
Anyway,
There you go. No, that's good.
No, he's been trying to get Britain a medal for this for like a couple of episodes.
I'm not British. I have no skin in this game. Anyway, you know, the American guy was, you know, as I said, trying to just stir up race relations, race debates. But then, so the what's this country called? Bermuda. The Bermudan guy was saying that one of the biggest challenges now. So they are still a British colony or whatever you call it.
in the Commonwealth.
Yeah. And so, like they have the royal assent, so they're getting screwed over. For instance, one of these laws is, so British Airways has a monopoly in Bermuda. And so, you know, they have to pay expensive
Or
airfares.
anti-competitive behaviour.
So that's bad. But then on the good side, like lots of Bermudans go and work in Britain and they like that. So, you know, they're not,
Swings and roundabouts.
well, yeah, so it's not super urgent for them to become independent. But then the guy was saying as well that London is sort of this tax haven for money laundering.
The city of London.
Well, yeah,
City
so,
of London,
yeah, so
yeah.
London is great for money laundering,
Wow.
and that London is therefore competing against the client base of Bermuda. I mean, I was the reason I was looking into the Bermuda is because
my heart bleeds to them.
well, the reason I was looking into them is because I think Bermuda, you know, I better be careful about the hate speech laws, but you know, they are rampantly helping commit tax fraud. They're, you know, all this money which could be, you know, when Peter was mentioning before about, you know, corporations not paying enough tax in Australia. You look at Ireland, Bermuda, Cyprus too, yeah. Like these countries being tax havens and, you know, stealing trillions of dollars from around the world. And so, you know, then it comes up in debates like now, you know, how are we going to raise enough revenue to keep our country going? You know, should we increase the
Well, look, if
working age,
you want to sort of go down this path, you know, there is the idea of, you know, removing the tax benefits for churches and sort
Yes.
of basically charging rates on all the church property.
100%.
You know, and I do know that in Victoria, you know, this is one of the things that we in New South Wales notice is that you actually had a fire service levy that was also levied on church property. And you were one of the, probably maybe the first state in Australia to actually properly say, what is church property worth? You know, you actually went, your bureaucrats actually went through that process, and you may have been the first bureaucrats in Australia to actually think that through.
John, the church, sure, they have a lot of money, but it's changed compared to what's going to Bermuda, what's going to Ireland.
Oh, well, I don't know enough to comment. That's quite possible. That is one of the things that I have to say in a broad sense. We identify a lot of problems, but we could say we get very emotional about some problems, but in the great scheme of things, they're quite minor. And then other problems that aren't that spectacular and get lots of media coverage are actually big in a financial sense. You know, this is one of the contradictions of political analysis when you're trying to get to the root of things.
Well, so one of the things we discussed previously, the business opportunities available in Bhutan. What if
We invade them.
Well, yeah, so let's say somebody happened to have $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, like Bhutan does, and then could they hire mercenaries? How much would it cost to hire a bunch of mercenaries to go to Bermuda? And then if the money from Bermuda went missing, seriously, how many people around the world are going to shed a tear? Anyone with the military, they're probably getting screwed over by
The
these
thing
tax
is,
rates.
right, if we invade Bhutan, no one's going to care because no one really wants to go and visit Bhutan.
Okay.
But if we took over Bermuda, well, people would notice.
I guess as well, it would be, I guess not, so the countries, they wouldn't be too upset. You know, the US government, for instance, would they really, you know, shed a tear over the overthrow of Bermuda?
If we took missiles there, they probably would, based on what's in it.
Well, but then I guess, you know, the rich people who own these companies, who are getting these tax benefits, do they have enough political clout, or could they hire mercenaries to get even?
Well, it is very interesting, I suppose, to say under what conditions could the US give a toss? Because there was the whole thing of who was it?
Monroe?
No, well, Kuwait. Now, goodness me, it was Iraq that invaded Kuwait.
Yeah.
And even though Kuwait was in some sense an artificially created nation, they still got very upset about the fact that Iraq was invading it. And
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Although overnight, so I think overnight over the last few hours, Mr. Trump did say in relation to
Greenland?
yes, Just because someone rows a boat there in the last 200 years doesn't mean it's yours.
Yeah.
Anything's up for grabs now.
Yeah, it seems like it. Also, yeah. So
Which gives credence to people protesting against Australia Day. It gives them credibility too.
oh, what's that saying? Ownership is, sorry, possession is 90%.
Possession is
of
9/10 of the
Not
law.
anymore.
Yeah. Well, like, I don't know, when people talk about, decolonizing Australia, I think like that's insincere. Like these people are not going to move out, especially if someone grew up in Australia, learned all our history, and were sympathetic towards Aboriginal tribes having their land taken, versus if someone just turns up now as an immigrant, just hears about the Aboriginal history. Do you think they're going to care as much? I doubt it.
Not if you're South African, no.
Well, let me put it out there that my parents came to Australia after the Second World War and Europe, but that for those people was consigned to be a complete mess that would never recover. I mean, obviously it did for those who bothered to stick around. But I do think, there was the thing of populate or perish and that sort of thing. And I do look back and think, obviously, the government of Australia at the time welcomed my parents to Australia. But wouldn't it be nice if, in some way, the Aboriginal people of our nation could have welcomed them as well? That's sort of something that I sometimes think.
So are you suggesting that the Aboriginal people didn't welcome your parents?
I don't understand why they would.
Yeah, well,
So did your parents receive like unjust treatment by the Aborigines?
no,
Or not welcoming?
No, it's just that I guess it happened without the active participation of the Aborigines, and it would have been nice that be a part of the total picture.
Oh, because the Indigenous people aren't part of the natural society.
They weren't part of the
Yeah.
government in an active sense at the time.
because
So,
they've been ostracized in their own land.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, who knows? Maybe they would have said, "No, don't bloody come here. We hate you," sort of thing. But they were not given the chance to either express words of welcome or words of sort
Because
of
they've never
farewell.
felt part of this current society.
Yeah. So
And that's why they're protesting.
yeah. So that's an observation I make there about Australia's history and not my sort of little part in it.
But then, so John, getting back to the idea of foreign policy and what we should do about Ireland, about Bermuda, Cyprus, I guess, sanctions seems like one of the go-to options.
What if we became a tax haven?
Oh, well, I guess.
Then we wouldn't have to lose our money.
Well, but I don't want to be a morally reprehensible.
No, but then every country becomes a tax haven.
Well, and then I guess wouldn't the people revolt at some point?
Globally, everyone becomes a tax haven.
So then, yeah, I guess everybody would want to start their own company then and pay no tax.
Or is there some collective that decides where all these tax havens are?
Is there a secret group of people?
I don't know. It's just us. Why can't we all just be tax havens then? Why not?
John, should we all become tax havens?
I don't believe that's a good idea. Let's just say if you don't believe in international trade, then maybe that makes sense. But
Well,
I
no,
think there's a
why is just Switzerland never gets invaded? And,
Switzerland has a policy of armed neutrality. They're
Well,
Geez, that
profiteering off
works.
other people's fault.
Yeah. Geez, you're a Nazi. You want to put your gold somewhere? Get here.
that's right. So
Yeah, no, problematic. Why do we keep working and other people are
Because
stealing our profits?
because there's a policies that most people have is we'll raise the working age to 92.
I said it's a possibility. I didn't say.
The corporations want it, and if you don't want it, we'll bring in a totalitarian government
let's
under
say,
fascism. There's always been fascism, just different.
I am not across the detail, but certainly it would be good if we took a more active interest in getting rid of money laundering internationally or tax evasion internationally. Now, I have to admit, I do not know the details of what we have done and what we could done. It does seem that there's an unending series of international conferences trying to put a lid on it, and you wonder about how much progress we've actually made. And let me say, I am not across that level of detail. I mean, I try, but I am not. So,
Do we all remember just around COVID, when COVID started, and it was around, I think it was that 2 year period, where they had that whole tranche of documents about everyone they had
The Panama Papers.
Panama Papers,
Yeah, yeah.
and they just disappeared. They got flushed with all the toilet paper they were always running around trying to get during COVID.
There was this world, a few months later, the Paradise Papers as well.
Yeah,
Like a
Paradise
similar,
Papers,
yeah.
similar trove. Yeah.
Yes, I recognise that international tax evasion is an issue, and I'm not across the issues. But let's just say, in broad sense, yes, we should take it more seriously, and we can do what we can about it. I would also say that I think that our foreign policy is somewhat dominated by the US and kowtowing to the US on multiple fronts. And if we actually pursued a certain degree of independent foreign policy, then maybe we could push harder on these issues. I mean, these are aspirational things, and I recognise I'm not across the issues.
But yeah, it's a shame that the political debate in Australia, at the moment, everybody's so heavily focused on immigration, and as we say, like there are other levers we could pull that charging companies a proper amount of tax. People, they're all focused about jobs for the Labour Party.
Well, I would also say that there are one of the things. I'll go off on a bit of a tangent here. Perhaps you'll indulge me, but there are a lot of people who are wringing their hands about the productivity decline in Australia and saying, "Oh, if only we were more productive in Australia, things would be so much better." And in one sense, that's true. But you listen to the people, and just like some people say, "Oh, we cut down on immigration, and that will fix all the problems in our economy." There are some people who say, "Oh, well, the only reason why we don't have productivity growth is because the government regulations are getting in the way, and all we have to do is get rid of these government regulations, and we make a sacrifice at the great temple of capitalism, and she will bestow her blessings upon us, and everything will be better." And I do believe that productivity is an issue. We want to increase our productivity. But it's not just regulations getting in the way and corporations not being bothered to invest, but there's so many things in the side, like the cost of fraud on the internet or whatever, or too much advertising, because the twin thing is, some people say advertising is enabling. I tend to think a lot of advertising is actually a parasitic thing on our economy. So, I mean, I think this is going off on a bit of a tangent, but there's so many things I can say that I think are productivity deficits that the regular economists don't really worry about, but they're real and they're out there and they're a drag on us, Like another thing is that our economy is more based on services than it was on production. And when it was based on production, it was very easy to say, "Oh, we'll make better equipment and that will improve productivity." But when our economy is so based on services, how on earth do you make people sell stuff better? It doesn't work that way. But yeah, that's sort of me going off on that particular tangent anyway.
I wonder actually, John, we can't chat all day, but if people want to learn more, I guess, when will they next see you on the ballot? This will be the next federal election, I guess.
Well, we'll see what deals I can make with the Fusion executive and what's the circumstances of my candidacy are. But I'm not saying that it's impossible.
I'm no longer on the executive.
Though I would say, look, thank you for the opportunity of speaking out here. I can but say, there's an economics podcast that I participate in coming out of Brisbane. That's Jean Tunney's Economics Explored podcast.
Oh, you're back on there soon?
So I've been interviewed on that. And also there's the various other speeches I've given that have ended up on the Fusion Party video site. So I've made commentaries on those things. And perhaps I will again. It depends on what interest I have in this. I'll put a plug for my website, johnaugust.com.au. You don't want to keep it in the AU, or you'll get the US-based screenwriter who wrote Charlie's Angel. That's not me, right? But yeah, I mean, there's lots of areas where I guess I keep myself busy and active and sort of put some ideas out there. So, but in any case, thank you very much for the opportunity of speaking on your podcast anyway.
Thanks,
and
Charlie.
Peter, in spite of our disagreements, yes, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Bruce.